I just read J.K. Rowling's TERF explanation, and I think we should talk about it. This is not a hate video. JK, you're not watching, but if you were, I would tell you I'm not here to villainize you. If you support what JK had to say, I'm really just here to talk with you. I don't believe that all the people supporting JK Rowling right now who don't believe lesbians should have to suck dick or anything like that are all awful people. I truly believe that if some of JK Rowling's points were made by someone else with different intentions, they could actually hold some value. But there's an underlying belief that JK has that really shows in what she just wrote, and that's what I want to talk about. Let's go through what she said. So she starts off talking about the hate she got when she accidentally liked a tweet from someone by the name of Magdalene. She describes this person as an immensely brave young feminist and lesbian who was dying of an aggressive brain tumor. So, from what JK says, Magdalene is a dying lesbian woman who believes in the concept of biological sex and was wrongfully abused and attacked by the trans community, which sounds terrible. So let's see what Magdalene said that caused this completely unwarranted attack. So I've pulled up the tweet from Magdalene here on my phone. I'll read it out loud. JK clearly believes all the hatred this woman got was completely unwarranted, so let's just see what she had to say. Okay, she said, "You are fucking blackface actors. You aren't women. You're men who get sexual kicks from being treated like women. Fuck you and your dirty fucking perversions. Our oppression isn't a fetish, you pathetic, sick fuck." J.K. Rowling, you're a writer. I'm gonna assume you can read. We know you saw this tweet. You said you liked it on accident because you were trying to bookmark it so you could get in contact with this poor, dying woman. But the way that you describe Magdalene's beliefs as just someone who believes in biological sex, instead of challenging what she actually said, which you know she said, shows something pretty important. You understand that comparing trans women to blackface is bad because you understood it well enough to actively mislead your audience about what was really said. Her tweet was transphobic, and you understood that, so you intentionally misled your audience to make your point. And I just want everyone to keep this in mind for something later. Here's the truth. J.K. Rowling, you are transphobic, and I'm not saying that as a buzzword. You genuinely do not understand what being trans is, and you fear them because of it. Go through this part of your essay. You say, and I quote, "The more of their accounts of gender dysphoria I've read, the more I've wondered whether, if I'd been born 30 years later, I too would have tried to transition. The allure of escaping womanhood would have been huge. I struggled with severe OCD as a teenager. If I'd found community and sympathy online that I couldn't find in my immediate environment, I believe I could have been persuaded to turn myself into the son my father had openly said he'd have preferred." You then go on to talk about how you support trans people, how you believe the majority of them are harmless, how you've spoken to trans people who even agree with what you have to say. But your language right there was actually very important because it told us everything we need to know. You say you might have turned yourself into a man, but the idea of being trans is the idea of being trapped in the wrong body. If you were a trans man, then you would be a man trapped in a woman's body, not a woman trying to escape womanhood, which is the term you used. This word choice is really important because it's very similar to Magdalene's tweet, though of course you said it a lot nicer. Magdalene calls trans women blackface. People who do blackface are obviously not black. Instead, they're mocking actual black people by dressing up in their skin. You later say, "Woman is not a costume. Woman is not an idea in a man's head." A costume. Would you say woman is not a costume in the way blackface is not a costume? Is different from Magdalene's, but your beliefs are not. A trans woman is a man in a costume to you, an idea in a man's head. This is why people are calling you a TERF. Not because you believe in biological sex, not because you believe lesbians shouldn't have to suck dick. It's because you do not believe in the trans identity. You admit you're afraid for your daughter's futures because due to your experiences and abuse that you suffered at the hands of men, you are afraid of men. I am so sorry you had to experience those things, but you are not the feminist voice you think that you are. You say you refuse to bow down to a movement you believe is doing demonstrable harm. You write in the tone of the last feminist, the last voice of reason against a hateful mob of misogyny. And I quote, "From the leader of the free world's long history of sexual assault accusations and his proud boast of grabbing them by the pussy, to the incel movement that rages against women who won't give them sex, to the trans activists who declare that TERFs need punching and re-educating, men across the political spectrum seem to agree. Women are asking for trouble." President Trump has said, and possibly done, is awful. Incels who threaten women are awful. But you just compared angry trans people on Twitter to the actions of the leader of the free world. You write as if you are the victim, a feminist martyr, the only one who would dare speak against a tyrannical trans community. You once tweeted about PewDiePie being a fascist, a white man with incredible influence, wealth, and power, somebody who, like you, is on his 4th or 5th cancellation. But you are a lot more like him than you are to the average woman. You arguably have even more power than he does. You are a white woman with incredible influence and wealth. You are not the voice of the average woman. And I quote, "The supreme irony is that the attempt to silence women with the word TERF may have pushed more young women towards radical feminism than the movement seen in decades." No, JK, I can actually think of some other things that have happened recently that might have caused this radical increase in radical feminism that have nothing to do with the trans community. Well, wonder what that was. A lot of MAGA men voiced their support of persecuting George Floyd's killers after his murder. Would you say that makes them not racist? That their empathy is good enough, no matter what else they've said and done? You say you feel for the trans women murdered by men, and I believe you, but you are still transphobic. Speaking against the furious vocal minority that I will admit exists do not represent the trans movement, the same way the crazed feminists whose viral videos led to the whole concept being villainized never represented the overall feminist movement, as I'm sure you would agree. But you have chosen to stand against the trans movement. You think it is because of what this vocal minority has said to you, but that's not why. You have chosen this hill to die on because you are transphobic. You can emphasize with murdered trans women and still stand against the trans movement, the same way some Trump supporters can stand with George Floyd and still support someone actively harming the Black community. You see being trans as a costume, as something people willingly choose, even though trans people are a lot more oppressed than you, a white woman, will ever be. You are afraid of them encroaching on women's spaces because you see them as men, even though no statistics support your fears. But that doesn't matter to you, because a phobia is never about logic. J.K. Rowling, you are a TERF. You are transphobic, from one cis feminist woman to another. JK, people aren't calling you these things because you're a woman and they want to silence you. They're calling you these things because they're true. You are a radical feminist who wishes to exclude trans people from women's circles. That's a trans exclusionary radical feminist, a TERF. You are transphobic because you have aligned with someone who has called trans people equivalent to blackface. You yourself have said similar things by saying it's like a costume or playing dress up at a man's head. These phrases show that you see trans women as men and that you are threatened by them. You have written in here that you are threatened by them. You have a fear of them because when you see something as a threat, it is natural to be afraid of it. Thus, you have a phobia of trans people. You are transphobic and a TERF. I would love for you to listen and overcome your transphobia, but we both know you won't. As a martyr, as the last feminist, as the hero of this story. One thing you're right about, though, JK, there is a new wave of feminism, and we don't look like you, and we definitely don't think like you. To the people who supported J.K. Rowling, I actually do not think most of you are bigots. I think you have not picked up on the actual transphobic language of her message. You're worried about your spaces and your safe places being encroached on. But I don't actually think this comes from a hatred of trans people. I think this comes from fear that is not supported statistically in any way. So I implore you, because again, I do think some of you are reasonable people, to do your own research. Look it up. Look up trans on women violence. Look up bathroom violence. Look up anything you want to. And, you will not find any statistics that support J.K. Rowling's overall fears. About the death of biological sex are strawmen used by people like Ben Shapiro, Steven Crowder, and now J.K. Rowling. There are very few people who would ever say anything close to that. The whole concept of being trans is about wanting to transition from one gender to another. If they did not believe in gender, they would not go through the trouble of doing that. There's no one making that argument. There's nobody saying lesbians should have to suck dick. Nobody is saying that. Do not let her fool you. Please do your own research. Thank you for listening. Everyone stay safe. Black Lives Matter. See you all when some more stupid shit happens, which is probably gonna be next week. Bye.